At some point, we have to shift from impacting billions of dollars to billions of people. And how do you start creating a bigger impact and scale that? And that's another area for me that I want to endeavor and charter.
And that goes back to your purpose-driven mindset. Welcome to episode 23 of Leading with Relevance. Today we're featuring Viran Shah, and I will tell you a little bit about him. I like to talk about what we do here at Relevance in terms of this podcast. We find people that I like to say are busting through the status quo and impacting companies and communities. Our goal is to interview and highlight the personal and professional journeys and learn about each person's why, as Simon Sinek would say. For the listeners, hopefully you'll find practical insights that you can apply to your own pathway. I'm Tino Mantella, Chief Strategy Officer for Relevance, and loving the opportunity to talk. And I always learn every time I do a podcast. It's great learning for me as well. The podcasts run once a month, third Monday of every month. You can find it on our website, and it'll be all over social media. As I said, today I have the pleasure of interviewing Viran Shah. I want to tell you a little bit about him. Viren is the ex-Chief Digital Information Officer at AGCO Corporation. He brings more than 2 decades of experience across multiple industries, including retail, consumer appliances, manufacturing, industrial products, with senior leadership roles at Walmart, Specialty Fashion Group, Masco, GE Appliances. So you'll see there's a lot of variety, which, I love to interview people like this because they're not just focused on one industry. Previously served as part of Forbes Technology Council on the boards of the American Red Cross and WaterStep. He was the 2025 winner of the Georgia Super Global CIO ORBIE Awards. If you haven't been to that, that's a great event. I attend it every year, and to be a winner with lots of competition is a big deal. He's received AI Leadership and HM Global Leader Awards. So, and everybody's talking about AI. So, Viren, welcome.
Thank you.
That was a lot, but well deserved. So, appreciate you
Well, I've
taking
been very grateful, and fortunate.
Appreciate taking the time to be with us today. So, I just like start kind of the basics. So, can you walk us through your personal and professional journey, starting from India and leading to your role as CEO of the U.S.-based global leader in agriculture machinery?
Yeah, I think the simplest way I tell my story is nothing but a lot of curiosity built along the way with a focus on purpose. So, um, when I was growing up, one of the biggest things that was played a big role in my life was my aunts, because in those days, and I would say probably a lot has changed, but a lot needs to be done. Women didn't have the opportunity that
No.
much, so they made sure that I got educated. Um, and funny is I didn't know what I wanted to do. So somebody said, "Hey, computer science is the next best thing." So I went and became an engineer. Didn't know exactly why. Um, then coming from a business-oriented family, did a few startups. But also, as part of my career, one of the things I was told is, hey, you're not smart enough because smart people go to America and get an MBA. So, well, guess what? I came to America and got an MBA. Didn't know what to do with it, but it was just to prove somebody wrong.
Yeah.
And I think for me that I did a few startups that didn't work. Did a startup in Botswana, Africa also. So adventure was always second nature to me. I was never afraid to say, let's go try this. And none of the startups worked. So then I took up a role with Walmart. They were kind enough to employ me and worked with them 12 years. Every 2 years, I had a different job almost. But as part of that, I was able to open Walmart in India. That to me was probably a game-changing experience. Is how do you take the world's largest number one company and do a greenfield like a startup
Yeah.
and set up a $1 billion business within a span of 2 years. So that was a pretty cool experience. Learned a lot. Um, then I went to Australia because I wanted to be a CIO. I think the title was very important for me. I didn't know why. Um, and I think um, once I finished my role so it was called Specialty Fashion Group. It was actually women's fashion clothing company where we would say, hey, and it had the largest women's database in Australia. So what we were able to do is from the age of 16 to 65 plus, we were able to actually, as we call it, lifetime value of customer, and we were to connect with that customer across their lifetime with different brands we had. A lot of amazing customer experience awards we won in Asia as part of that. The family didn't enjoy Australia as much. Kids were growing up. So we came back to Michigan, and I was working for a kitchen cabinet manufacturing company. Um, and it was a turnaround because I joined March 20th, March 31st, we went live with an ERP, and that did not go well and actually created a huge turmoil in the business. So we had to build the whole business, fix the ERP, but also a lot of impact on operations that we have to turn around from a loss-making organization to profit-making. Then I was able to work for GE Appliances. And I think that to me is where my pivotal moment in my life occurred, where I really had epiphany that what I was really always looking for is purpose-driven organizations. And I wanted to be part of something way bigger than I possibly could do. So, in Walmart at the door, we used to have a sign that says, hey, walk through these doors, walk ordinary people who do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where my realization came. I had an amazing leader in Kevin, and we were able to go from a number four appliance company to number one in the United States. Do a lot of good things from how do we zero the distance from the consumer to the creator. And that was kind of our whole game plan, which is a higher philosophy anyways, but
Yeah.
it's just called zero distance. And essentially, the less gap you have between the creator and the consumer, the less waste, but the more effective you are. And that's kind of the goal and the game plan. And that's kind of how we were building the GE appliances story. And post that, I got a great opportunity, working for AGCO, where you can just help solve world hunger literally.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest part. And that's kind of been my journey.
I love the purpose-driven piece because that's one of the reasons I joined Relevance. The founders started really from a poor part of India, and we still take about 20% of our workforce from that area. I was able to visit that area last year. It was really meaningful to me that, people do things that, you're looking beyond the bottom line in terms of the financial bottom line. So, yeah, congratulations on that. You mentioned startup, Viren, and, not being successful. So I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of times we learn more from not being successful than being successful. But did that help you? Because you mentioned Walmart. Did your experiences in startup help you with that job?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
So, when I was working as part of the Greenfield in India, like I was one of the first 15 on the ground. So the level that I operated in was like if your PC wasn't working, I was fixing it. You had a
Yeah.
password reset, I would help you. At the same time, I was interviewing the next leaders in the company, even outside of IT. So for me, the one thing that startup teaches you is no job is big or small.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mentality you learn because when you're an entrepreneur, it's your business. So, and when it is your business, nothing is too big or too small.
Yes.
And it's a very humbling experience and it humbles you. So one of the big learnings from startups is that for me personally, and the second big learning I would say is in most startup cases, I think we get too attached to what we are trying to do
Yeah.
versus what does the customer really need or what problem we are really trying to solve. And
Right.
and you see that today, many companies with AI and everything, it's just like I have a fantastic solution, but they have a challenge articulating what's the problem they're trying to solve.
Yes.
And I would say that's been my couple of key learnings from my startup world.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So you mentioned your aunts and the persuasion to go into computer programming and be an
Mhm.
engineer. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that your kind of early years and how you kind of had that path to take that journey?
Oh yeah, so I grew up in a town that is what would you say, 1 square mile,
Oh,
so 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. Everybody knew everybody. So it was a very small town. Um, we were a huge family, joint family, how it used to work in those days. And there was only one graduate in the whole in the whole family.
oh wow.
And I was very fortunate. So we had a business of a retail store, and we would do that. But no exposure to external world and things like that. And my aunts, they made sure I went to an English medium school, so I didn't learn, or learned a different language and became more proficient in that. But at the same time, um, it was not an option not to study. And then they made sure, one way, shape, or form, I was focused on my studies. And I think um, living in a very small town and in that environment, and then going to a big city like Bombay for college, and that was to me is a whole cultural shock. And by the way, it was just 60 minutes away by train.
Okay.
But just the exposure from a very small town to a very big city and then going through college, um, it was quite a big cultural shock just in general. But that's kind of how I would say the biggest influence and the thing was very simple for my aunts is like, hey, we are not getting the opportunity. We're going to make sure you get one.
Yeah, that's great. So you obviously, as you described it, you've had a lot of different careers, different roles. Uh, I've known over the years about AGCO and their leadership in agriculture. Um, Anything surprise you when you first took that role, or the importance of the industry? What you're doing for farmers, particularly in this day and age, where I think efficiencies, costs. Hearing a lot about costs during the tariffs and all, and the role that you played and how AGCO's helped the farmers over the years.
Yeah, I think one thing about what I really enjoyed, and I do believe is the secret sauce, as I call it at ACO, is our focus on the farmer first. Like whatever we do, what's in it for the farmer? And I would say, to me, the little bit of a surprise was is even today a farmer has a lot of different solutions. Um, so for an implement, you buy X, for a tractor, you buy Y. So there is still a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that a farmer needs, which was a huge realization for me to actually perform their operations. But the coolest thing is so let's just say, our harvesting machine, which is a very big machine, costs a lot, but they use it only, 2 or 4 weeks in a year.
Hmm.
And so the cycle of usage of machines is very small. Hence, the reliability of the machine has to be very high. And those are some of the key aspects that I learned as part of our farmer first approaches is how are we going to make sure, um, that a farmer gets what, 40 harvests in their life.
Hmm. Yeah.
And how do we make sure that each harvest is the most optimal? And AGCO is working on solving this, what we call with a retrofit perspective, where even though there are different solutions a farmer has, we are able to give them a platform that allows them to connect them so that they are able to perform their operations in unison.
So let's switch to everybody's favorite topic, AI. Companies are moving towards platform-led AI first operating model. And there's some steak and there's some sizzle in there. What does that practically mean to you in terms of, the word AI? Is it a buzzword? How people are thinking about it? And because I know I've heard you speak before, and I know you're up to speed on this topic.
Yeah, what I would say is this, that the challenges we face with AI is, um, how do we create value out of it? That is the unanswered question in many organizations, and that is a struggle everybody's facing. Yes, we know we have to use it. Yes, we know we have to participate in, but I say, hey, do we have a playbook? Like ERP is simple. We know if you implement ERP, you get this, you get this, you get this, and this is becomes efficient, and you can do that. With AI, I think just because of its evolution, it's a little complicated there, and most organizations are struggling with that. And I believe the two key approaches on AI is more about how do we not forget the human? And there is a word being used, citizen development. But the fact of the matter is that unless the organization is going to become more aware or we create more AI practitioners and AI experts, it's going to be difficult for these solutions to be adopted because it's if you go back, and I would say my younger days when Excel and Microsoft Office, you would use it a 3-inch floppy drive if you ever got exposed to one. It's like you had to use 14 of them to upload Microsoft operating system. But Excel was highly adopted is because a lot of users started using it way more than it became a technology push. And I think very similarly is the citizen development on how we are enabling the whole organization to be more well versed with Copilot, and Microsoft has been a great partner for me in that. In how do you help the citizen development going on in the organization? And the second aspect of it is how are we leveraging enterprise AI and
Hmm.
where it comes to our databases and what do we do with it? So the data you have that you use every day, whether it's your emails, whether it's your SharePoint and everything else, I think the citizen development takes care of that, and I think you can become productive on your own. And the second aspect of it is okay, how do you create high impact use cases to deploy enterprise AI and create value out of it? And there are three key pillars for that. One is the value creation and value governance pillar. The second is the technology pillar, which goes back to whether it's the AI architecture, AI platforms, and of course the data layer. But the third and the most important one that most organizations should also focus on is the change management and the people layer. Because if we are saying AI or agents are going to do this work,
Right.
then we have to answer the question, what is the human doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And unless we solve for that, and all these three things are, it's a three-legged stool, and if one is missing, it's a little bit shaky.
And I think you're addressing this question now, but what should enterprises stop trying to build internally instead co-create through ecosystems. So that's sort of what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Not everything has to be built internally, right?
Exactly. And the second aspect I would say also is what use cases you are picking to build yourself.
Yeah.
See, at some point, just like ERPs came along, like one of the startups I did was I was building MRP systems. There was no ERP then; it was the manufacturer resource planning systems, and then
Okay.
the ERP came. Very similarly, a lot of the processes that we do today, I'm sure somebody will create a system that we'll just buy, which will be agentified. I think focus on the key value creating aspects because that's where the organization will also get behind it.
So you're feeding right into the next question because I'm jumping to, if you think about, your crystal ball for 5 years, what will distinguish companies that win with AI from those that merely, continue to experiment?
Well, the simplest way I say it is if 100% of your organization is AI aware, and these
Hmm.
are just my numbers,
Yeah,
70% of your employees are AI practitioners and about 30% are AI experts. I think that formula to be in place will actually determine your success.
I love that. I love that. So with AI scaling rapidly, what responsibility do technology leaders have beyond the business outcomes?
I think there is a fear of, when I was growing up, we still call it shadow IT.
Yeah.
I do believe this is an opportunity for technology leaders to actually promote and democratize business IT. And I feel that if that is done, I think the adoption and the value creation will happen much faster. I think that is this fear of control, which is
Yeah.
natural because cyber and responsible AI and everything has to come into play. But at the same time, what I would say is we should promote and democratize business IT because I think a lot of value will get created that way.
There'll be a lot of young IT professionals listening to the podcast. So, I think you're one that has, I'll say, maintained your learning edge, if you will. What advice do you have for people to, stay ahead of the curve or at least at the curve? And of course, there's a lot of discussion around transformations now.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was probably the key aspect I would say for most of the I always had this simple perspective. I know we create, hey, what do I want to be when I grow up and things like that. I would just say just focus on 3 years from now. And the simplest rule I have is to say 3 years from now, what are you writing on your LinkedIn profile?
Hmm.
And unless it is relevant, unless it is something that you feel is going to be valuable to what you're going to go do next, I think that's a good checkpoint to say, hey, just because on LinkedIn you can only have few bullets, so it forces you to be more precise. But at the same time, it's like, what are you going to be doing 3 years from now, and what would you write on your LinkedIn profile?
Love that. So, since this is leading with relevance, the theme, uh, I want to shift a little bit to leadership and your leadership journey, more in terms of your leadership style and how it's evolved over the years. Is it, changed how you work with people, how you lead people, how you give them
Yeah.
room to grow, that sort of thing?
Well, for me, what shaped me, there are two books that have shaped me a lot. One is The Art of Leadership, and it talked about situational leadership. Because what's going to happen for us, Tino, is the our external environment is changing way faster than internal, and our ability to keep navigating and be agile with these situations that we are encountering is going to be a very critical aspect. So for me, I was lucky. I saw a green field. Did a lot of M&A. I saw a turnaround. I saw exponential growth. every situation of how I applied technology was different. And I was lucky enough to be inculcating that kind of a mindset, which is the second book I would say is The Growth Mindset by Carol
Mm,
Dweck.
yeah.
But that to me are the two books I would say that have shaped me a lot, just in general. And that has allowed me to say, hey, it didn't work, pivot.
Yeah. So there's five generations in the workforce now, right? From baby boomers to Z's, and you've worked with
Exactly.
all of them. Have you had to change your leadership style given you talk about situational leadership? So certainly if you're working with a Z or a boomer, or how did
Yeah.
you meld together at AGCO or any place else you've worked your team? Because you've had some pretty big teams.
Yeah, what I have enjoyed in the recent years with the talent pool is I think they really have great ideas, of course, very strong opinions, and I had to start asking questions versus giving answers.
Hmm.
And I think and it's funny we say that, but prompt
Yeah.
engineering is all about that. But I think that's exactly what it is because the workforce and the talent that is coming in, knowledge is not going to be their problem. Like that, with all due respect, I've learned a lot. I have a lot of knowledge, but it's all available to a very large
It's
extent
all
now.
available on
For
your,
free.
yeah. Yeah.
So what I bring to the table is the wisdom of saying, hey, have you validated what you're saying is true? And I
Yeah.
think it's no different than prompt engineering, for lack of better terms, Tino, is what
Yeah.
I would say is that is the adaptation that we have to have with this generation.
I think I'm quoting you here, at least that's what I'm told. You've said inclusion is a leadership mechanism, not a culture initiative. How does that show up in the real world of decision making? And you might want to explain that a little bit, what your thinking is there.
Yes. Well, and I think John Maxwell said this very well. Is
Okay.
like, um, including somebody saying, "Hey, we have a party. Do you want to come?" And inclusion is, hey, we have a party, would you dance with me? And I
Mm.
think there is a big difference between saying, hey, many a times just how we function, we invite people to meetings just to say that, hey, you were invited, you heard, right?
Right.
But do we stop and say, what do you think?
Yeah.
And force the discussion so that we get the best idea on the table because the best ideas are generally with the most quiet people. So, how are we forcing that conversation to say, do you agree? Do you agree? Do you agree? But not to say that just shake your head, but to say that, hey, what do you think? And I think for me, that's what we have to be today because um, the decisions we make today may be irrelevant in 3 months, 6 months, based on, especially in the technology world. And ensuring that everybody's voice is at the table is important because taking people along this change journey is more critical than ever before because it's going to change very soon anyway. So
Yeah.
I think the simplest way, the example would be is like, hey, we're going to go do this. What do you think? And you have to, for lack of better terms, expect an answer versus just I'm okay kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point because back in the day, I used to tell people that you would sit at maybe the desk as a leader and say, you need to follow my direction. And now you
Yes,
have to say, more servant leader, what do you need?
yes, yeah,
I need to follow what you're trying to do. It's a very different time and
yes,
age.
yes. And just help them guide through their decision making processes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like to ask a question around, who's inspired you? Do you have a person or in business or life that you kind of follow, or some suggestions of people? You've told us about two good books. I think I've read one of them, The Growth Mindset, but The Art of Leadership. But any other thoughts on like an inspirational person or?
Yeah, I have been very fortunate to have some amazing, amazing mentors. in my career. But the one person I would say, that has actually, even today, he's a person I reach out to, is Kevin Nolan from GE Appliances. He's the CEO there.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and his ability to take GE from where we were and where we went, and he's just a great coach and guide, and I've just enjoyed working with him. Yeah,
So
it's not
yeah,
over yet.
yeah. So what's next for you? Are there some exciting projects or initiatives? I mean, what are you looking to do now?
What I would say is that there are two key play aspects that I am working towards now. One is, so as you heard, I have a good fortune and I'm very grateful to have opportunities, different parts of the world, different
Yeah.
countries, different geographies, different industries, just in general. So how do I, use those experiences and use a platform where I can help a more than one mechanism or organization. And I think that's kind of where I feel I can help a lot of more than just one organization. So more of a platform approach, which allows me to leverage, what I bring to the table, but also learn along the way. And then the second aspect is, and I never forget um, Rakesh from Infosys. He coined this phrase for me, which has stuck my head. He says, "Wherein at some point we have to shift from impacting billions of dollars to billions of people."
Hmm.
And how do you start creating a bigger impact and scale that? And that's another area for me that I want to endeavor and charter.
Yeah. And that goes back to your purpose-driven mindset.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
uh, time for two more questions. These questions are, this next one's one of my favorites. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Give time the time. Have patience sometimes.
Yeah.
I think, and time takes care of itself. And sometimes you just have to do that in your career. I think we are very hasty. We want the next thing pretty fast. And sometimes we just have to give time the time.
Yeah, I love that. Be patient.
Be patient.
Yeah. And enjoy the ride, right? Don't
Yes.
look to the next thing.
Yeah.
So finally, this is similar, but if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice regarding relevant leadership, what would it be?
Yeah, I think constant learning.
Yeah.
And I think when I mean by learning, learning doesn't have to be classroom. Learning does, like just listening to a podcast. If every day we just asked one question to ourselves, what did I learn today?
Yeah.
And
I
if we
love.
have a good answer for that every day, I think we will always be relevant.
Yeah. So remember that. What did I learn today? So that's good. And I learned a lot from you, Viren. So I appreciate you
Thank you.
joining me on Leading with Relevance. And again, for our listening audience, you'll be hearing this on the third Monday. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you around the community because I know you provide a lot of support to people. So thank you for joining.
Thank you, Tina.